What I wanted to talk about is the prints along the wall there, because that's the main body of work that I've been doing over the past 3 years. And it started with my collecting grasses from my neighborhood. And it's just phenomenal, the range of grasses just in one tiny area. I mean, there's like 50, I don't know, just ridiculous. So what brought me into them was just looking at their structure, how unique they all are, the way they shed their seed is just phenomenal. And these are cousins to the food we rely on, wheat. And so they're tiny, they're insignificant, but they're very important, sort of like environmental canaries almost. So I was collecting the seeds, I was drawing them. At the same time, since I started working in photogravure about 6 years ago, I'm increasingly using my camera. And I'm not a photographer, no, not at all, but if you've got a reasonably good digital SLR and you take pictures all the time, you're going to end up with some really nice, the occasional really nice one. So I was aware that in my computer I've got all these photographs. I really want, I want to use them somehow. And I've got the grasses. How can I bring them together? How can I do this? So first of all, I thought, well, I'll do small lithographs of the grasses. I will kind of elevate them by drawing them and then drawing them on the stone and printing them. So I did that. And then I thought, well, I could use some of my photographic imagery to put these grasses in different landscapes, put them in new landscapes. So I'm thinking that I might even put those prints into a portfolio, and if I do, if I get round to that, I would call it landscapes, because that's what the grasses, to my mind, have become. So, I mean, it took me ages to get to that point. Okay, I can use photogravure and lithography, and two very, very different means of working. If I can pull it off to get them on the same print, that would be fabulous. So the 6 prints there are 6 of the grasses printed on stone, and then my bank of photographic imagery. And the idea was to have each print with an image of the grass, but as I work through the process, things don't work out. And so each one developed differently. The first one is called Grass Landscape. There's an aerial photograph, the photographs of 2 dried but beautiful plants from my garden, and the golden ratio, and they're all kind of plumped together on the plate. And when we look at a landscape, or we think about gardens, we think about beauty and perfection, and I wanted the remains of those beautiful plants, set them in the landscape, set them with the golden ratio, and then put that single stem of grass, that very important stem of grass, to sort of confront what we normally think of the beautiful as the exotic, but so it's grass. So the next print with the image of the bird, the photogravure on that plate is a photograph of a building on the right-hand side, which is from a high-rise in Baltimore. And that was all that's on the copper plate. And I thought, oh, what else can I do? What I can do with the rest of the plate? And slowly I go through my images. And we went to Australia, and I've got a fabulous photo of a whistling kite coming down to take prey from this ridiculous crocodile hunting, but you go out on a little boat, and the guy has nasty bits of meat, and the crocodiles jump up to catch the meat, and it's all very scary. But this whistling kite would also come flying down to also take the same meat. It kind of twists a little bit the events of 9/11, but also I wanted to give that sense of how we are entrapping the creatures in our environment. And there's been a lot of reports recently about how many birds are damaged flying into the glass windows of high-rise, so all that. The next print with the drill. The drill is a photographic image taken from a mine in Brazil. And then we have the grass in the center, and then the image to the right of the print is another aerial landscape. And I wanted to show you just that first started like this. And I thought, ooh, I don't like this. I really don't like this. There's too much space. This is too grey. So I added what's called an aquatint to seep into this landscape image. And I printed it, got that, and I thought, whoa, that's oil. That's oil. That's whoa, just what perfect. It was actually made just after the BP oil disaster. Not consciously, but that's how it happened. The next print, the central image of the opening Cinderella plant, I have an absolute fixation on. It's called the Night Flowering Cereus. It's just beautiful. The scent is wonderful. So again, I've set that within a sort of golden ratio, and then facing it is what it looks like the next morning. It's gone. It's dead. So again, the life cycle. The next print along, arbor. The leaf I photographed in my studio on my light table is just a perfect, just crisp and nice and lovely. And then the tree images were taken from a Californian forest. And the little tree seed is just so delicate and so tenuous. And if you look closely at the print, tiny, tiny little couple of centimeters that attach the seed head to its branch. I just liked it because it has a purity which I don't see very often in my work. I tend to overwork, I think, a lot, and that is not overworked at all. Whereas the next print is. There's two photographic images each side, and those are from Singapore, just looking up at the sky, and these beautiful, beautiful leaves against the moonlit sky. Just a lovely, lovely image. And then the central section is an etching. If you walk through the woods at night, you'll see that the leaves actually pick up light and the edges are all outlined. And I didn't know until I just bought a camera with a sort of a micro lens, this little furry growth on leaves that picks up this light. So that's really just is a play on light and leaves. And then the two other prints, the top print, this is it in its previous life before it became what it is there. This is about breath, air, and dissemination of seeds. There's quite an ugly weed that grows rampantly locally. It has big, hefty pods, but inside are these wonderful, silky seeds. They're about this big. Milkweed, is that what it is? Beautiful, beautiful. So I photographed them on my light table in my studio and then reversed the image in Photoshop. So from this beautiful, milky, silky, I get this cloudy, black kind of. The last print is about continuation of growth in the landscape. There's another aerial landscape, there's another leaf, and in the center is a mangrove, which ties sea life to the ground, ties itself to the ground. It's just hugely important plant. So that's that series. And this is, I think, or hope the beginning is I want to do a lot more work with drawing, with feeding that drawing into the computer and using Photoshop to blend my drawn and my photographed images and start working that way.
The golden section, you mentioned the golden ratio and
right.
several of your pieces.
I only just started using it for this section of work because I only just found out about it. And it just, and I probably won't do it again because I think I've used it plenty here. But it was just discovering it, and I've always had this thing about perfection of form. And it wasn't until somebody lent me the book about the golden ratio about 3 years ago, I thought, oh, so I was right all along, there is a perfection of form. That Australian landscape, the colour and the black and white, I've got those two channels running each side, this sort of vertical space, which I'm repeating in quite a lot of those as well. When I'm doing a natural form, I do like to set it within some kind of architectural context, or a man-made context. you know, we do our own sort of forms of perfection in our architecture and our religious buildings, and I've often used the arch as a motif in my work. Again, and it's like the natural world, it's that perfection of form, totally beautiful and totally functional. But yes, and I also realized over time that I'm doing the same work that I did 15, 20 years ago, differently, but it's the same subject matter. I look at it differently, I do different things with it, but it's still the same. And I'm in my morning walks now, I've got a micro lens, so I can photograph things like that. So what is happening is that work's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. I know. I think, you know.
and then it become the same thing.
Right. Well, yes. I mean, and that is what I try to do, is elevate these forms that I work with, because they're forms we don't really kind of look at very closely. Those three there, after a clematis has flowered, you get into a bundle of fluff, a little white bundle of fluff. And I photograph them again on my light table and reverse them in Photoshop. And from this little pretty bundle of fluff, I got this really rather kind of, you know, kind of almost, I don't know, like a hurricane type image almost. But yeah, I mean, and yes, things are getting smaller and smaller. And I just wonder if I'll be using a microscope next time around.